guys, we are back for another Dokkan battle video. Today we are going to sweep the red zone with a 200% team. For this run, we are going to take the LR Metal Cooler, 200% Wicked Bloodline team, and we're going to go ahead and take down all of the GT side of the red zone. Now, it is funny, now that I've, been doing a lot of runs in the Wicked Bloodline red zone, it really does show the gap that there is between those stages and most of the stages in a lot of these other red zones. Even something like Rilldo, which previously I would have considered a very tough fight, is just not nearly as tough, right? So this first fight against Ledgic, I guess how this goes. He gets obliterated. Alright, so next we are fighting Lord Luud. Again, this is just, this was a warm-up fight even back during the start of the 7th anniversary. Now, this is just, absolutely nothing, right? I mean, keep in mind that this Wicked Bloodline team we're rocking is basically full of characters that came out during this celebration. And then, Easy A, AGL, Golden Frieza, who came out, I guess, 2.5 years ago. And then there's also, LR Golden Frieza, who came out 2 months ago, pretty much. But, the entire team is, this celebration. So, needless to say, these earlier fights, like Ledgic and Luud, just don't really stand a chance. We just absolutely blow these stages away. Alright, so next we move on to the Rilldo fight. Now, this is what I was talking about, right? A couple months ago, the Rilldo fight, it definitely is still tough. This is not oh, I'm just very casually jumping in and, we're effortlessly winning easily. I mean, we are going to effortlessly win easily, but, we could get caught without sort of smart team building or like knowing the way rotations work and stuff like that. So Rilldo, it can be a threat in all 3 phases, because he does lower defense when he supers. But unfortunately for Rilldo, he is power crept as an enemy, right? Final form cooler, just like, yeah, nice double-digit damage. There are many characters in the game, top-level characters, who are eating 300k plus from that super attack right there that Rilldo just did double-digit damage on final form cooler, right? It's crazy. All 3 phases lower attacks, so we do have to, sort of keep that in mind. And then the final phase of Rilldo, he does lock. So this is where using, like, int characters can really come in handy, and being very, very cautious about which AGL characters you bring into this fight, right? LR Golden Frieza, of course, will be fine. The TUR AGL Golden Frieza will be fine as well. Here we get Metal Cooler's Nullification. I love seeing that little smirk right there. Beautiful, beautiful. But basically, these 2 AGL characters, Golden Frieza and Golden Frieza, they're not going to take damage. Even though we have type disadvantage in this second phase, I think this Rilldo could definitely do damage to either Final Form Cooler or EZA Cooler, right? They would take damage here, for sure. But it's just not... There's the nullification again. Get smirked, that pussy. Yeah, there's not really too much Rilldo can do, right? Like, it's... it is what it is. There's stages in here that could be tough for this team, but these went down, honestly, pretty easily. Final Form Cooler would not die even if this Rilldo supered him. Base Cooler probably would not die even if Rilldo supered him, right? And then, I mean, should we even talk about the non-stop healing we're getting every single turn as well? Not just from LR Metal Cooler and int LR Metal Cooler Army, but then also the Metamorphosis link between Final Form Cooler and Base Cooler. It's just a lot. And the auto-regeneration link between the Metal Coolers, like, it's just a lot, right? Rilldo just doesn't stand a chance. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the Baby fight. Now it is funny, once upon a time, Baby was the toughest fight in the game. There was a good week and a half where I definitely would have said that this was the most difficult fight to go through in the game. Now, this fight can still be tough. Baby is a boss that, you know, he essentially has one of these 1 million damage super attacks. I think Baby's actual super attack damage is like 990,000, I think. So he actually is just shy of 1 million damage on his super, but I mean, we can essentially count him as that, right? Like, he's one of these million damage super attack bosses. So we do want to be, you know, a little bit, like, you know, mindful of that. The other thing, too, look at the healing. Like, we take damage, but then we just instantly heal it up, right? It's like, yeah, whatever, who cares? Damage, what's that? Grade 8 Baby at the end. His AoE normals can do a lot of damage. I believe his AoE normal attacks for like 300,000 damage, something like that. So, you know, your characters are going to need to have about that level of defense to be able to double-digit tank, you know, type neutral, if you're also an extreme class enemy. So many characters in the game, really great characters these days. They all pretty much get defense on super attack. It's all the good characters are sort of like that. So this grade 8 Baby can be a little bit tough when he's dishing out these AoE normal attacks and then sort of completely obliterating characters that need to get a lot of defense when they super attack, right? But the thing is that with this team, right, Final Form Cooler, by the time we get there, is going to have the necessary defense to probably take double-digit damage, right? Final Form Cooler fully built up in the end of these red zone stages, a lot of times that 400k plus defense start a turn, right? And then as he's doing 12 key super attacks, he's then getting 50% every super. So it does get very, very nasty, right? We don't really have, typically against Baby, you want to come in here with a lot of physical type characters, because the last two phases of Baby are int. But, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of the physical options of Wicked Bloodline. Angel, I thought about trying Angel Golden Frieza, but I know he's going to be a slow defensive stacker compared to, you know, what he was a couple years ago. The Golden Frieza does have the damage reduction, right, under 50% HP, but I felt like just bringing, like, Easy AGL Metal Cooler probably would have sufficed, right, because having AGL Metal Cooler in the team means we just have another healing character as well. And AGL Metal Cooler can get high enough defense, and I do have the full dodge build on him, so in case of any AoEs or Baby tries to drop that 1 million damage nuke on him, then we could just have AGL Metal Cooler potentially dodge, right, or tank very well. Honestly, not too bad, right? We have double LR Metal Cooler. They're healing a lot, but then they also have type advantage against Baby. Base Cooler is able to stack up a huge amount. Right, Golden Frieza able to do a huge amount of damage throughout the fight and then tank very well, even against the 1 million damage bosses as his damage reduction runs out. You know, we're just, again, Baby is, I think, still a tough fight, but now, you know, the new characters are just so dumb, right? It makes it very difficult, even for some of these tough red zone fights, to really keep up. now we are fighting Super 17. Now, this definitely could be a fairly tough fight right here for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have double LR Metal Cooler, right? Which means we have double type disadvantage with our leader against, again, one of these 1 million damage bosses, right? Which Super 17 is. And we also have to be very cautious with Ki Blast super attacks, right? Remember that Super 17 will absorb Ki Blast super attacks, which can be an issue if he actually is able to absorb them, right? LR Golden Frieza actually does do a Ki Blast super attack, right? Which is a bit of an issue, right? And we're going to be healing Super 17 up quite a bit throughout the fight. But Final Form Cooler... Also, notice how much damage we took, and then look at that. Look at our health. Just sprint upwards, right? That's like the double LR Metal Coolers both healing at the end of the last turn. Like, it's just crazy. Like, their heals can really just account for so much. So, our TUR Golden Frieza doesn't actually have his damage reduction on this turn, but we got sort of lucky. And then, you know, AGL Metal Cooler, and then LR Golden Frieza. We don't have to worry about the damage they will take. And then look at our health, right? Like, it's just constantly healing. Now, it is funny. I brought Fraud Power Frieza with us, and of course, as you know, this guy has a weakness, and it's Ki, right? Full Power Frieza needs to get 18 Ki Supers to build up that defense. Remember, after 5 turns, he loses his passive. If you're not stacking his defense, he becomes a glass cannon, and he has major Ki issues. I just do not enjoy running LR Full Power Frieza anymore. I mean, he could certainly be better if we were going against super class enemies, where he has that mini Ki buildup, right? He builds up 1 Ki at the start of every turn against a super class enemy, right? That would certainly, I mean, we're 1 Ki away from an 18 Ki super right there, right? So it absolutely would have helped, but Ki to me, I think, is that Full Power Frieza's biggest issue, and he kind of does want to be run on rotation. And the thing about running him on rotation is he might struggle for Ki, and then he doesn't get his defense, and it just becomes an issue. But I felt like Full Power Frieza could still help us, considering this is a pretty short fight, right? It's only 2 phases. And then Super 17 is just an STR boss that we have to sort of make our way through. I felt like Full Power Frieza could help us do that. Now, we took, what, 500,000, 600,000 damage turn 1? And by the time we make it to Super 17, just all healed back. You have to love that. This feels very good, all right? Like, when using this team and then having this happen, this amount of healing, again, it just feels very good to heal all this HP back, to know that these Metal Coolers every turn are healing us like crazy. Yeah, it's Golden Frieza's 12 Ki is a Ki Blast, which Super 17 will absorb. And remember that LR Golden Frieza, if your HP is above 50%, he does a guaranteed additional super. So it's like every turn, LR Golden Frieza is going to be healing Super 17 a lot. But, you know, like Full Power Frieza will gradually get stronger. Final Form Cooler is going to get stronger as the fight goes on. And eventually we will tear Super 17 in half. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the fight against the Shadow Dragons. And this is just pretty easy. There's a couple of characters on Wicked Bloodline that do stack up. Remember that this is either the longest red zone fight or second longest. I know Frieza, Wicked Bloodline Red Zone Frieza does actually have more health that we have to go through than the Shadow Dragons. But the Shadow Dragon fight certainly can last for a very long time, right? So we do have a lot of stacking characters here because of how long this fight goes on, right? I brought Transforming Frieza. I don't use Transforming Frieza much. He has aged pretty poorly after the 7th anniversary power creep. That Golden Frieza is just not defensive enough for my liking. But in a fight like this, where we can pretty comfortably get to his Golden Frieza form, and like he's not, you know, we're not really at risk of dying, I would say. I'm a bit more comfortable utilizing him, because the problem with Transforming Frieza is that he cannot take hits until way deep in the fight, right? And you got to make sure you're hitting his super attacks, right? It's been a while since I've used him. I'm used to fighting super class enemies with him, to where like he gets the key on super, but I was like, oh right, it's an extreme class enemy here. But for the most part, we just destroy this fight, right? Like, we have a bunch of stacking characters, right? Final Form Cooler gets stronger after 10 attacks. Easy A base Cooler, Cooliza, right? Like, there's just a lot of different type of characters we can bring that can go ahead and stack and just make this very, very easy, right? Characters who will, again, just sort of stack up. So by the time we reach the end here, like, we're just not really taking damage, right? Like, these bosses can't do anything to us. The hardest phase here is Nova Shenron, who is STR, right? Which certainly could be an issue for LR Metal Cooler, but I don't think any of these bosses before Nova can kill us. So if LR Metal Cooler is going to potentially get one shot by Nova, we should still have our revive by the time we get there, so it's not really too much of a concern there. And then Ice Shenron at the end does have a lock, but I don't think Ice Shenron would be able to one-shot most of our characters, and especially if we're not bringing, like, some int character that he could lock in slot 1 and bully. I just don't really think we have too much to be concerned about in this Shadow Dragon fight, right? Like, it's not... this is not, I would say, an overly tough fight. This fight, honestly, feels pretty free most of the time. It's like, I guess Nova could catch you at the end, or Ice could lock someone and catch you. It's possible, but it's not very likely. And then we just have so much healing, right? Transforming Frieza, AGL Metal Cooler, both LR Metal Coolers, we're healing like crazy. So basically the bosses are going to have to one-shot us, and these Shadow Dragons just aren't really built like that to potentially one-shot. So pretty easy W here, I'd say. Alright guys, now we are moving on to the Omega fight. Now I believe this no item, this is just from my initial, like, you know, opening world tour for LR Metal Cooler, right? Like, okay, like, let's test out how good Metal Cooler is, we'll take him into the strongest fights. And I ended up just no iteming it, you know, on my first attempt. That's why, like, we brought items, but we don't use them, because I quickly realized, oh, we could probably just no item this, and then I did, right? So the Omega fight. Omega certainly could be a tough boss, right? Like, he's still hard. Omega, compared to the rest of the GT Red Zone, I mean, I don't want to disrespect Super 17. I feel like he can do a lot of damage. Baby can be difficult, right? But Omega is the one fight in here that's way more, like, on par with some of the Wicked Bloodline Red Zone stages. And the thing about Omega, though, is that early on, we can debuff him, stun him, or seal him. Right, so we can keep Omega sort of locked down in this first phase. Again, keep in mind that we are going to be healing like crazy with the Metal Coolers and stuff like that. So Omega's going to need to basically one-shot us in order to take us out, which he's probably not going to be able to do besides the second phase. Of course, STR Sin does a lot of damage. If he super attacks Metal Cooler, we're almost assuredly dead, but we still have the revive to play with, right? I like AGL Metal Cooler in this fight, because once he's built up, I found AGL Metal Cooler, his defense is high enough that he will be able to tank the last phase against Int Omega. And we have many characters on this team who could survive Omega's super attack. If we had super good RNG and like good linking partners and stuff like that with Final Form Cooler, I do think that we could potentially survive with Final Form Cooler. Obviously, LR Golden Frieza can live. I think TUR Golden Frieza potentially could live. You know, because it's like we have nearly 700,000 HP to work with, right? Also, I believe some of these runs, by the way, were recorded before STR Cooler got his EZA, by the way. I believe that's why he's not on the team. And that might be why he wasn't on the Shadow Dragon run as well. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Using some different characters in a bunch of these runs is probably a good thing anyway. But obviously, STR base Cooler, I think his EZA is good enough that you can even run him in the very tough AGL fights, right? Like Broly and Metal Cooler. But obviously, you just have to be a little bit more cautious in those fights. But yeah, Omega, right? Like, man, it's just coming back into here with how the Wicked Bloodline Red Zone is, where it's like Final Form Cooler, AGL Metal Cooler, and like Tech Full Power Frieza, and I guess the physical Metal Cooler core, right? Like those bosses are, for the most part, doing like Omega's super attack, except it's like phase 2 pretty much in all those fights, and there's no countdown, so you have no idea where it's going to be. So then, like, you come to this Omega fight, and it's like Omega's just choreographing where that super attack is, that, you know, the one-shot super attack. And even on top of it, we have numerous characters who could just outright live anyway. This is a turn where we easily could just float LR Metal Cooler off. This was definitely just like, all right, let's test how good LR Metal Cooler is. I believe we do die right here and revive, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because, again, we revive. It's cool. We get to see the revive animation in the videos. That's not really an issue. So there we go. Not really too much Omega can do. Again, the only way, I guess, would be like we could lose if LR Metal Cooler would get one-shotted again. That's basically it, right? Like, Omega has to catch our LR Cooler right here a second time in order to win. So let me know what you guys think of the sweep of the GT Red Zone. Honestly, really was not too bad. I mean, to be fair, we're using like a contender for best team in the game. This Wicked Bloodline 200% team is absolutely ridiculous now. With all of the major additions during this Worldwide Download celebration, we just have so many ultra powerful characters who can completely dissect these bosses, right? It's so crazy. Like, looking at the way we destroyed some of these fights, like Baby and Rilldo and Omega just get obliterated here. And it's like, just, you know, 8 months ago, it's like, it was a struggle, right? The first no-item run against Omega, like, I remember feeling very accomplished, like, all right, nice, yeah, finally got that done. And now, it's just, like, super, super casual to just go ahead and completely destroy this, right? So, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.